talked about the redeemed nature, how Christians in the business world may act differently. How do we think about competition? How have you thought about competition when you're, as a Christian in this business world?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking of some of the students here and some of the ones I've met, and having to decide, can you be a believer, can you be a Christian in the marketplace, and can you do the right thing? Jonathan gave some examples, and I think that there's a lot of cynicism about that, and is it even a whole area to avoid because you can't have your own personal moral compass or personal integrity intact? And boy, I hope you don't conclude that, because I think the marketplace is just such a great platform for living out our faith and having a chance to, and not that we know exactly how to do it or it's so easy, but I think it's only fair to say to students too, is that it's not unusual for there to be a price associated with it. There's a cost if you're going to exercise your personal integrity and tell the truth. That may end up costing you your job or costing you, but I think the satisfying thing is to try to develop a culture where we're going to hold ourselves to that standard, to a standard of telling the truth, to a standard of treating people fairly, to a standard of being transparent and open with our investors.
Tell us about that standard. You guys did something different in your relationships with your competitors.
Oh, well, we had talked earlier about we've got the best safety record in the industry for 15 years, and it's not because I just
maybe explain a
like
little
to
bit
say
about
it.
your company.
Yeah, so we're in the contract drilling business. We have 340 rigs, so we're the largest provider in the United States, and 10,000 or so employees. And so part of what you're trying to do is put that many people out in the field and keep them safe every day. And so you measure it by recordable incident rates, so a accident that causes lost time per 200,000 man-hours worked. So, it's not a subjective measure. It actually is measured every day. And so we've had, by a significant number, the best safety record for the last 15 years. So one of the issues we have is we put a lot of money, resources, time, effort into driving the systems that allow us to be safer. And a conundrum is, well, how much of that do we consider competitive advantage and in essence proprietary to us, and how much do we share? And in fact, I called our head safety guy on my way up here yesterday and said, hey, I don't want to be doing crazy talk. Here's my recollection of how we do this, and was affirmed in that. So I wanted to make sure I wasn't misrepresenting this to you, and I'm not. So this is true stuff. And so here's, the tension is, it is a competitive advantage, but at the same time, you have an opportunity because you know better and you have figured it out and you have solved a high-risk situation that you can save lives of your competitors. So you can save a young man's arm or leg or his life because you know the hazard that you've designed a fix for. And our practice has been, hey, we're going to share that with our competition. And we do that actively and probably to our own disadvantage, but in the long term, we're continuing to get better. And the customer sees us as getting better all the time. They consider us the leader. They consider us a resource. We're the go-to company for that solution and for creative ideas and for better. So I would argue our shareholders benefit from our willingness to, and I can also tell you, hey, we're not going to share everything, and we know how to keep a med pump running for 50,000 more hours than anyone else does without a top job. We're not going to disclose that. But if it is the matter of a young man's personal safety on the other side of the fence from us, then we're going to be willing and wanting to share that. Interesting thing from this conversation yesterday, the guy said, you know, the only drawback of that is if they can get it for free, we find out they really don't implement it on their rigs. You know, it's kind of like your kid. Well, let's not go into that. I've got 5 kids, so I don't know. But there's something in human nature that the fact that they haven't, kind of what you were saying, Beth, you know, that they haven't had to work for it or keep their edge or have to, you know, they tend to hold it cheaply at the risk of their own personnel.
Well, maybe it's because it's not just knowledge, it's process.
Yeah, and a culture.
And a culture.
And it's a hard
And
attitude.
just by getting it on the web, you're not going to change
No,
the
that's
culture.
exactly right.
So you have to be dedicated enough.
That's exactly right. But that, you know, that's an example. I think it's bigger than that, in that one of the things Eric said this morning is people watch our lives. And that's true today for everybody in this room. So one of my great memories at Dartmouth was really struggling. I was not the brightest bulb in the package. I was kind of the Oklahoma quota. It put me in a position where, you know, I would ask fellow students for help a lot and, you know, say, how are you doing this? And, you know, they'd bring out, at the time, this is going to sound like you were trying to ask people if they remember it. But they would bring out this system of 4x5 cards and, well, here's how I categorize this and here's how I sort. I was like, wow, that seems like a lot of work. But in essence, I got so much help from my fellow students here. And I can name people that kind of got me through this place. And it was an observance of their life that they were willing to do that. And in the workplace, people observe our lives, and they know if we care or not. They know if we remember the names of their kids. They know if we have a broader sense of who we are and our faith than what the next quarter's earnings are. Why does that matter? Well, they want to work in a place like that. And investors want to know that, hey, you've got a horizon point that's higher than the next quarter. And I think you're going to build longer-term shareholder value for me by having a long-term view. I think by having people, we have 900 people that have spent over 10 years with the company. We have 450 that spent over 20 years. We have over 70 that spent over 30 years. Well, that's unheard of in our industry. But I would argue that's just not kind of, family, feel-good business. I'd say that gives us a competitive edge because of that continuity of expertise, people focused on driving solutions. We're better because we have figured out a way to retain people and make them willing to contribute over the entirety of their career at the company. So people watch your lives. They want to know if you care. They want to know if it's more than about the short term and if it's about some selfish ambition. And that translates into doing the right thing, but it also translates, I think, not surprisingly, into better value creation.
Let's talk about that, the long-term view. This is a big challenge in business today, whether you're a public company or a private company. Somebody has probably a short-term view. But we have a much longer-term view. In fact, our view is as long as eternity, perhaps you could say. Beth, you have an incredible story of this concept of the short-term view in business school compared to the long-term view in the real world. And you can really confront that at an early age, understanding that long-term view. Your story, your experience at Stanford.
Okay, so I think what Catalina is referring to, I went to Dartmouth, loved it, go Big Green. Worked for 4 years and then went to Stanford Business School. And Stanford, at the time it was Stanford and Harvard, and I chose not to go to Harvard, and I had this great time at Stanford. And Stanford kind of prided itself on, we're the warm, fuzzy business school. That's not what the words they use, but we're cooperative. And we actually had a class called Touchy Feely, Which I could not take because I was also a mom at the time and I had a small baby and I just couldn't afford to get more babysitting to do the sessions at night. So I never took touchy-feely, which means I'm not quite, really a Stanford grad. But, and this extent of touchy-feely, they didn't do a class rank. And so we had a Friday beer get-together, Friday afternoons, and we were basically the 11% club because the top 10% of the class was recognized, but no one else was categorized, so you didn't know what your class rank was. So they did a lot of things to sort of de-emphasize grades. It wasn't A, B, C, D, F, but interestingly it was honors, pass plus, pass minus. You kind of could map it. So anyway, it was wonderful, loved it, got a great job. I'm working for a little while and I'm thinking, what was this about cooperation? The world's really competitive. Why did we